Halima, and I'm sure now my face is very familiar to you. And today's lecture is number 3, our third lecture, and today's lecture is about the methods and approaches we use, or you can use, when you are doing any creative translation. As usual, I always state my objectives, or the learning outcomes you are supposed to achieve. Not me. This is for you, you know. So my main objective of this lecture is to enable you and help you achieve the following learning outcomes. You should be able to show knowledge of a number of strategies used in translating literary texts, and you should be able to apply these strategies when you are doing any creative translation, you know. So you need to ask yourself by the end of the lecture, can I do that? Can I explain what I have studied today? You know, so these are just guidelines for you to follow when you are learning something. All right, now, regarding approaches and strategies and methods used in translation in general, there are, what I would say, there are so many approaches, so many strategies, so many methods, but when it comes down to translating creative writing, people have different views. Now, the first type, or the first approach to translating creative translation or creative writing is suggested by David Bendelbury. He says, look, we have two recognizable main stages. There are two stages when you are translating any text or any literary text, whether it is a poetry or drama or novel or a sacred text. We will come to that next lecture, inshallah. You need to think of two stages. Stage number 1, you have a poem, you have a text, a short story, a novel, whatever. You have a text in front of you. Firstly, you need to produce a draft translation of the original that is accurate and literal as possible, as much as possible. So you translate as literal and as accurate as possible. When you are doing that, of course, there will be some kind of holes, gaping holes and pitfalls. You are not happy about this translation, I know, first stage. And this stage, you leave it aside. From my own experience, you leave it aside and you say, all right, you reflect. And you say, okay, what kind of gaps or gaping hole or misconceptions or gaps or any pitfalls you missed or you misunderstood. So this is stage number 1. Then you move to stage number 2. What is it? You see, we then, or you then, translate the draft. You don't really refer to the original any longer. Just a bit, you know, to double check certain items or certain words and so on. So you have the original here, the first draft here, and now stage number 2, you are translating what? Not the original, you are translating the draft. You are making amends, you are modifying, you are polishing, you are, you know, trying to, what we say, I mean, this guy, I mean, this, what's his name, Pendlebury, suggests the word weaning away. Weaning away, it's like a baby weans away from breastfeeding, you know. يفطم وكأنك تفطم نفسك عن الأصل، بمعنى أن you refer to the draft, you don't refer to the original. So this, then you can feel that the second version of your translation is getting shape, and it becomes more acceptable, probably more readable, more creative, and in all, it is a good translation. So he suggests 2 stages. You might agree, you might disagree, I leave it to you. But this is one way of doing translation, one method, one approach to translating creative writing. Okay? Now we move to an example. Look at this example. Now this excerpt taken from a story written by An-Nu'aymi, and you can see the difference between versions A and B. Why? Because when two people translated this. A, somebody, not me, someone, and B, I translated B. To give you an example how you translate draft. First, you make a draft. Look, this one is the original. Okay, the Arabic one is the original. A, the Arabic one says, كان يوما ملتهبا كطفل نالت منه الحمى الشارع الإسفلتي عربيد أسود ضل طريقه أما الشجيرات على جانب الطريق فقد كانت تلهث لأن هناك من نسي إرواءها الغبار حناء تناثرت في المكان لتصبغ حتى ثناياه. Now look at the red here. Look at the red. Now the student translated the first line as it was a very hot afternoon as the child experienced the heat of a fever. Now let's take this bit, only this bit. كان يوما ملتهبا كطفل نالت منه الحمى. It was a very hot afternoon. كان يوما ملتهبا. Why did she say afternoon? Why didn't he say it was a very hot day? And the child experienced the heat of a fever. This is one way of doing it. But does it sound English? You could ask yourself, is it really new? Is it really accurate? Is it really appropriate? Is it really imaginative? You need to ask yourself. Now look at the second example. Okay? It was a scorching summer afternoon. The feverish heat of the day made people stay indoors. The street was as quiet as a mouse in the locker room. It was a scorching summer afternoon. كان يوما ملتهبا. Here, the translator added the word summer. Why? Because, and scorching is stronger than hot. You know, there is a difference between you are working in the street. For instance, you are in Riyadh, for instance, is different from when you are in Riyadh or in Dammam than when you are in the desert. You say it was really hot this afternoon, but you are in Al-Hassa, you are in Riyadh, you are in Jeddah, and so on and so forth. But when you go to outside the cities into the desert, you say, gosh, it was really scorching hot. Very strong word, very strong word. So you need to be able to come up with really new words, good words, but relevant and appropriate. And again, the feverish heat. You can say, with the feverish heat of the day made people stay indoors. It is, you need to take into account that you are translating a story, you know, and you need to create this storytelling or this narrative style into your translation. You need to make it attractive, you know, catchy, you know, you catch the attention of the reader. I know the الشارع الإسفلتي عربيد أسود ضل طريقه. If you translate it literally, عربيد, you know, so you need to be creative in the sense that the metaphor is that the street was as quiet as I mean, it was really deadly quiet. Here, the street was as quiet as a mouse in the locker room. Imagine yourself that you have a locker, you have a little room, and you get into the room, and there is a mouse, and you know, this mouse gets really quiet. So this is an example. This is an idiom in English to show you that it is really dead quiet. All right. So this is an example of how you use two stages. Stage one, this is the original. Stage one, this is the draft, and this is then second stage, a better one. All right. So we move to another type of approach you can use when you are translating creatively, and you need to really so many, I mean, people use different approaches, different methods. They and when you are translating, you know, you need to be able to see whether you can translate the whole image of the text into really a very nice image. Now, in this case, you need to check the outside and the inside for translating poetry, for example. The kernel and the shell, you know, the shell of. In other words, you need to look at translating a literary text in a holistic way. In other words, you look at it from a poetic point of view, from a linguistic point of view, from a stylistic point of view, or from a cultural point of view, or from a literary point of view, and you use all these elements to come up with a proper and appropriate translation. So you take into account as well the aesthetic coherence. I mean, your translation should be coherent, beautifully coherent. It's not only you highlight the interrelationship of elements inside a poem. It means the holisticness of the poem, but you need to be aware of the coherence, you know, the coherence of the poem or of the text. Now look at this. Again, I mean, this is, I mean, we have said this, but I've used this to give it as an example to you, again, about the holistic approach to translation. Here, number one, A, B, C, one version, second version, third version. Then the numbers D, I use the holistic approach to translating poetry. In other words, I try to embrace the content and the form of the poem, I've tried to integrate the stylistic features of the poem, whether it is the rhyme of the poem or the versification of the poem. So you need to look at it as an aesthetic piece of information or text. So this is an example of looking at the text in a holistic approach, in a holistic way of translation. Now, there are other approaches to translating creative writing, and Andre Lefevre has got about an approach which consists of 7 strategies and a blueprint to examine and compare the strengths and weaknesses different approach might have. I mean, he would say, okay, when I'm translating a literary text, whether poetry, novel, story, or whatever, I need to really look into the following elements: the ST, means the source language, and the phonemic unit, the phonemes of the unit, of the expression, and then I need to look at the literal meaning and the meter and the rhyme of the ST, and then I have to use all this information when I'm doing it and translating into another language or another genre or another type of text. It means into the target language. Now, when you are translating English poetry into Arabic poetry, it's not easy, by the way, to transfer it into poetry. So he is suggesting that some people translate poetry into prose. Now, how to translate poetry into prose, this is a little example to show you. You know, this poem was written originally in Japanese, and then translated into English, and then translated into Arabic. Now, when I take the path to Tago's coast, I see perfect whiteness laid on Mount Fuji's lofty peak by the drift of falling snow. Now, the Arabic translation here, you know, it is prose. عندما آخذ الطريق إلى شاطئ تاغو أرى غطاء أبيض يوشحه الكمال على قمة جبل فيوجي السامقة صنعه الثلج المتساقط المنتوف. Now, some of you might say, oh, well, Dr. Halima, I can really reword this and I can do probably better. Why not? You know, you could really do better. Why not? Now, another prose, I mean, it came up with me like, I mean, this is not my translation, by the way. As I said, this is Anwain's translation. Now, I have translated before. I translated it in a different way on my way to the studio, and I would like to listen to I would like you to listen to another version of it, which says, على الطريق إلى شاطئ تاغو غطاء أبيض جميل من ثلج منتوف على قمة جبل فوجي العالية. This is a second way of translating it, but again, it is prose, it's not poetry. Okay? Now, there is another way of looking at, there is another type of approach to translating creative writing. I mean, Paz looks at translation as both bilingual and a bicultural activity. In other words, you need to translate a text, you need to look at it from the linguistic point of view and from a cultural point of view. It's not language only. You need to look at it as from a cultural point of view. This is very important to be aware of. So especially literature. Literature is full of cultural connotations and associations. Now, very quickly, I've chosen, probably, I don't know whether you have heard of this example or not before, but this is an example to show you the relationship between language and culture and the effect of cultural connotations on translation. Now, what we say, Shakespeare has written this poem. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. This is just a couplet. It's 2 lines. Now, Fatma al-Naib, she was a poetess, and she was qualified to translate. Probably, I mean, it's obvious that she knew some English. And look how she translated it. She translated it into Arabic, of course. She's trying to translate it into poetry. She said, من ذا يقارن حسنك المغري بصيف قد تجلى وفنون سحرك قد باتت في ناظري أسمى وأغلى. It sounds fine. It rhymes. It is probably موزون, according to our Arabic العروض, موزوني. But I don't know whether you agree with me or not, that she has made a very serious mistake. The mistake she has made has killed the message Shakespeare wants to pass to the reader. She used a sayf. Now, do you know that the connotation of summer in English is different from the connotation of summer in the Gulf or even in the Arab world? Now look, English summer is a symbol of beauty and liveliness. Arabic summer, it is not a symbol of beauty and liveliness. No way. Even in Lebanon, where it's really cold and blah blah blah. No. But we are talking now about the Gulf states, a huge area. The summer is not a symbol of beauty and liveliness. Now the summer is very hot, 1 to 2 months, very short. Sorry, the summer in England is very short, 1 to 2 months. Look, the summer for instance, in the Gulf states or in Saudi Arabia between 3-4 months. And the English summer is cool and temperate. The summer in Saudi Arabia is dry, humid, and hot. Now, the summer in Britain has positive psychological effect. The summer in the Gulf states has negative psychological effect. In other words, let's say in August, I mean, it's really, really hot, and people stay indoors, running away from the sunshine. Therefore, what you need to do here, if I was a Naib, I would have translated it into Arabiya. Now, if I were her, listen, I would have translated it as من ذا يقارن حسنك المغري بربيع قد تجلى وفنون سحرك قد باتت في ناظري أسمى وأغلى. Now the word Rabi' is of course much better than a Saif. You as Arabic native speakers, you enjoy Rabi', and this word Rabi' gives you so much emotions, so much effects, so much influence upon you, so you need to be aware of this. Therefore, look, English, we go to the English summer is equivalent to Arabic spring. English summer, symbol of beauty and liveliness. Arabic spring, symbol of beauty and liveliness. English summer very short, 1-2 months. Arabic spring very short, 1 to 2 months. English summer cool and temperate. Arabic spring cool and temperate. And English summer positive psychological effect, and Arabic spring positive and psychological effect. So I hope that you have got the message now and grasp the meaning of some methods and approaches to translation. And before we finish off the seminar or the lecture, I would like you to translate practical lecture number 3, this poem from English into Arabic, and then we have another one. Translate the following excerpts from a short story into English. Use your creative ability in your translation. Please, please, please translate it. Please translate it. Please translate it. You need to practice. You need to practice. You need to practice. Because most of the questions will come from the lectures here, the slides, and the lectures that inshallah will be attached to the slides later on. Okay, so I would like to thank you very much, and I hope that you have benefited from this lecture, and I wish you all the best, and thank you, and goodbye.